Alright, so if you guys saw my last video, I ended up pulling the VR6 out of the Mach 4 GTI because got a junkyard engine. It's getting a turbo, so got this. Basically, rundown on this is I got it from some guy. He's gonna put it in his car, put a head gasket spacer in, had new chains on it, whatnot, and never ended up putting it in his car. So it sat outside for about a year. I ended up buying it. It's basically eBay built, but at this point, I just want this thing to run. And yeah, so it's got short runner intake. It's got 550cc injectors, which I'm definitely gonna be limited on. So I can be making crazy power until I get bigger injectors for sure. I'm just gonna throw it in like that. It's got a manifold T3 on it. Of course, my turbo happens to be T4, so I just got an adapter. Hasn't come in yet to adapt to this one. eBay, wastegate, and yeah, so pretty much an eBay build. But basically, I was never gonna do any of that. I had an engine, so I had this engine. I pulled apart. I bought all the parts for it, and have rods in there. Basically, all the parts in here to build this thing and do it right. Fortunately, never had time to get to this, so decided to pick up that engine over there until I eventually get this thing finally done. Yeah, so just gonna see how long this thing lasts with all the eBay parts on it and whatnot. I just want this thing running again. This thing was a lot of fun. I like the VR6, one of my favorite engines. So that kind of explains why I'm throwing this thing in there. Normally, probably wouldn't throw something like this in, but I already had the head gasket spacer, already had the short runner intake manifold, and the wastegate, all that, even though it's all eBay anyways. But I just want this thing to be back together as quick as possible, and at this point, as cheap as possible, and whatever else. So don't really care what it's got on it. I already have a turbo. So I already have this basically eBay housing with Garrett internals. It's a GTX 3076R with a T4 manifold, and it's got the V-band outlet for the turbine, whatnot. That's when we put it on. This is the turbo the guy gave me. This thing is a genuine eBay turbo. This is brand new. I don't know what he was doing with this paint. Kind of gives you an idea of the guy, but so yeah, this is brand new eBay turbo, and it's already got crazy shaft play, which is, I don't think I'll ever run this thing unless I rebuilt it. But this was supposed to be a GT 3582. This one, absolutely zero shaft play at all. So I think this thing will do just fine. Another thing is I'm gonna end up throwing on the clutch that's in this thing, and it's just like a stock clutch basically. I had like 300 miles on it before I blew the thing up, and don't really feel like buying a new clutch right now since I don't know what I'm doing or how this thing's gonna, or I don't know what I'm doing right now with this thing. Probably gonna leave it pretty low on boost anyways, so I'm gonna be limited on that too, not just injectors, but I don't know how long that thing's gonna last before it starts slipping, but I guess we're gonna find out with this, I think it's a Sachs OE rep clutch. So we're gonna see how long that thing lasts too. So bunch of shit I probably shouldn't be doing, but I'm gonna do anyways because I just want this thing back in the car and I just want this thing running again. And then eventually, once I have my other engine, finally get to build it and all that, I'm gonna swap them out, and that'll be done right. But at least I'll have the majority of the stuff put together, like intercooler piping and all that stuff I won't have to redo again and whatnot. Just gonna have to swap the engines out, which isn't a big deal. At least I'll have most of the turbo work already done by then. So yeah, now you guys know the basic idea of what I'm doing with this thing, and yeah, let's get into it. Probably just gonna put it on time lapse and start swapping everything over from this engine onto that one. All right, as you can see, got the transmission out, and we also got the clutch pulled off. And taking a look at the clutch, just like I said, literally brand new. You can still see all the grooving marks on the flywheel. You know, obviously has a little bit of heat in it. That's pretty much normal. And the paint is literally still on the clutch, the friction disc, which is pretty funny. Just goes to show how new it was. But gives me a little hope that this thing might hold a little bit, because I did have a huge shot of nitrous in it and it didn't slip at all. And it looks like this. And I did it about a bottle a day for 2 weeks, so not bad. I don't know how much this thing's gonna hold. It's one of those, I think it's a Vallejo. It's just the OEM replacement one. Just single mass flywheel instead of the dual mass flywheel though. But yeah, looks pretty good, hopefully, and ends up lasting me a little bit before I get a new one. But back to getting this thing apart. All right, we got the transmission, starter in, all the bell housing bolts are tight. Also got the clutch in, all that. And now go ahead and swap over the thermostat housing, all that fun stuff. And I think I'm also gonna take this power steering pump and put it on that thing, because that one has been sitting outside. A bunch of stuff has probably gotten in there, so I don't know if I wanna run that one. And that way, I know this one's good. I might leave the AC compressor in, because either way, I don't think either one works. I know this one didn't work before. Neither did this one. But yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead, swap all the thermostat housing stuff onto this one now. Go from there. And I think that's pretty close to it. There's a few other things I'm gonna have to do, obviously. It's got the electric water pump already on it. I just gotta put it into the mount back there. And yeah, let's get to it. All right, so ran into a slight problem, and that is that this little sensor right here, since the throttle body's in a new position now, it actually hits this part right here, and I cannot get that piece to go on. Now I'm guessing I should just be able to rotate this and the problem's solved. And another thing is he put the return line right here. Clearly didn't have the transmission on, because with the axle right here, that is definitely not gonna clear. So what I think I'm gonna do is get some 10AN line, bend this 45 down this way, then have it come up like that, and then up towards the turbo, and I think that should be fine. But yeah, so I'm gonna have to pull off the throttle body and figure that out. Hopefully I can just turn it so it's not, this part isn't gonna interfere with anything, but we're gonna see. All right, so don't have the throttle body on yet, but I do have the thermostat housing on. And another thing I ran into a problem with was the fact that after I put the secondary water pump, or whatever you want to call electrical water pump on, the guy put on this little T here where the oil pressure sensor goes. So basically right into there, and the oil pressure sensor was sticking out that way, and it ended up hitting this secondary water pump. So I ended up taking this out, and I also took the line that he had that was supposed to run to the turbo all the way from the front to the back. Took it off. I didn't like that way of doing it. I was originally just gonna leave it, but then I ran into problems with it fitting. So also this thing wasn't even tight in there, so it's a good thing I took it out. But yeah, so I took it out so I don't have that. And since I have a bunch of parts to turbo the car already, I basically have all the parts that I needed. I already had this thing right here, which basically goes onto the tensioner, the timing chain tensioner right here, and the line goes right to the turbo. Pretty simple, much easier. The only thing is that when you get that, and I got this with a kit from, can't remember the name of the place now. Let me check. All right, so it's HPA. They sell the kit with the head gasket spacer and all that stuff. And another thing they give you is this little cylinder right here that goes into the factory tensioner. So I already went ahead and put it in, but basically what you're gonna do is gonna go ahead and pull out the factory little cylinder piece that goes in and out of the tensioner. There's a little clip down there, and you just kind of like pop it out, and eventually pops out. But the main problem is getting this thing back in with the clip, and it's kind of a pain. Just did it off camera, but I did get it in. As you can see, it's much longer than this one would have been. That one only stuck up about right where that line is, I guess. This one sticks up a lot more because there's basically a spacer now. So we gotta make sure that it still goes deep enough in to tension the chain. So that's what I'm gonna be doing. I'm gonna use this little spacer, get my oil pressure right from the timing chain tensioner, and it makes it way more simpler. And yeah, so that's what I'm gonna do. And I think I should be able to put the throttle body on just at a different angle. So instead of it having been like this, where it hits the thermostat housing and that sensor down there, you can see, I'm just gonna put it something like this, or I'll figure out a way to put it. I don't think it's gonna be a big deal. I think this is the way it's gonna go. I'll put it in there and it should be good. All right, so as you guys can see, got the throttle body on. It is up against that, not really a problem though. And I think I might have been able to get this piece over here, but the thing I'm worried about now is if this is gonna clear where the radiator goes, because I know this is super close to it, but I think we should be good. We're gonna find out though once we put this thing in. We also got the power steering pump back on, and I took this AC compressor off, just assuming it was bad, and it's actually good. I went ahead and tested it, put a positive and negative, two tabs, or the two connector pieces, and it does work. So I actually might leave this thing in, and I might swap out this alternator because I did have a brand new one, but the car's been sitting for about a year, so I'm gonna leave this thing on for now, I think. And yeah, I think that's pretty much everything off of this old one. It's already got all the stuff on it that's still on this thing, except I did forget to put the fuel pressure regulator on to that one, because I believe this one I put a 4-bar on, which kind of stinks because since I am limited on injector, at least that will help me a little bit. But I think I'm gonna have to pull this off anyways eventually, once I do put in the car and all that, because I forgot I still have to drill a bunch of vacuum ports, since this has absolutely 0 vacuum ports on it. So I'm gonna have to probably pull that thing off anyways, but oh well, at least I got it on for now. And once I do have to pull it off, I guess I'll pull off that regulator. But other than that, everything is pretty much back on. Just gotta put a few wires together, but a lot of them I gotta wait. So it's back in the car anyways, so not a big deal. And I would have put the turbo on, but I'm still waiting for the studs and the flange piece to convert it from T3 to T4. since I'm not buying a new manifold, and I think it's going to be fine without one. And yeah, I'm also waiting on a dump tube flange, so I need the flange for this so I can make my own pipe down. But that's pretty much all going to be in another video. Basically going to make all my own intercooler piping, mount the turbo, and make a dump tube for it. It's probably all going to be in one video. But next video on this thing you're going to see is it getting put back in the car. But that's it for now. Peace.